video, and today is Championship Sunday. So what I did was I combined my favorite four props on the AFC and NFC side of both games, as well as paired it with Jaden Daniels over 0.5 passing yards, which was a free square. If you guys haven't used it, these are some pairs you can use to pair with it. So let's start off with who I have as my four. So I have Shakir over 7 receiving targets. I have Saquon Barkley over 21.5 fantasy score. We have Travis Kelce over 16 fantasy score, as well as Devontae Smith over 4 receptions. So let's get into it. Let's start off with Saquon and how he fares against his Washington run defense, which is pretty poor in my opinion. And I'll just give you stats to state why I say that is because, for one, they allowed the most yards before contact. They allow the 8th highest explosive run rate. They allow the 4th most explosive rushing yards at 762. They are 21st in rush success rate, and they allow the most yards before contact in man gap schemes. And Saquon leads the league in 3.58 yards before contact. So he gets almost 4 yards before he gets touched, pretty much. That's basically what that stat is. And then he has the second most yards per carry in the NFL against the in man gap schemes. And then he's also 4th in explosive run rate. And in this postseason, he averages 162 yards per game and averages 6.35 yards per carry. So I think he's going to run wild in this game. I think he's going to break off a couple long runs for whether it's a touchdown or just a long run in general. So I really like him in this spot. I think he has potential to score twice in this matchup and just do minimal on the ground and still cover. But then he's also a passing threat as well out the backfield to be able to catch passes and add on to his fantasy score, because PrizePicks, the way they grade their fantasy is PPR, so points per reception. So you get a point for every catch that you make, as well as the yardage added on as a bonus. So moving forward to our next candidate. So our next candidate is Travis Kelce. I know a lot of people say, oh, he wasn't, he's not his usual self, speaking on his regular season numbers, but in the postseason, Travis Kelce, I call him playoff Kelce. In the postseason, he has 172 catches for 2,020 yards. He has 20 touchdowns in 23 games. In the last 2 games, he scored a touchdown. He leads the team in target share in the red zone at 26%. He averages 87.8 receiving yards per game in the postseason for his career. He averages 7.48 receptions in the playoffs, as well as the last 2 games he averages 7.5 receptions per game. Buffalo is 13th in yards to tight ends. Buffalo is 20th in receptions to tight ends as well. So I like Travis Kelce to be able to cover this, whether he scores or not. He should be able to cover this line. I know a lot of people have a lot of pause and hesitation because of the last game that he played, that he got held for like 1 catch for 8 yards. But I doubt that happens again. I think Andy and the offensive coordinators will find ways to get Travis involved, whether it's through middle screen, tight end screens, to try to get him involved in all different types of ways just to get him going early. Another way you can look for him, if you want to pivot off of his fantasy, you could do his receptions. I think over 6.5 is pretty good as well. Just a little quick, easy dump off passes to him as well. So that's why I like Travis Kelce's fantasy. Moving forward to Shakir. So for Shakir, he has 61% of his route shares in the playoff. So he has 61% route share in the playoffs, which is the highest on the team. No other Bills receiving target is above 50%. 13 targets in the last 2 weeks. It brings them to a 27% target rate in the last 2 weeks. The Bills' next closest receiver to have a target rate even anywhere close to that, is 10.4%. The Chiefs have been weaker at guarding the slot, allowing 8th most yards per attempt, 8.84 yards per attempt to the slot receivers. They're the 5th highest catchable throw rate. So when they're thrown to the slot, they allow a 84% catchable throw rate to those targets. Shakir runs 70% of his routes in the slot. He sees the most designed targets of anybody in the NFL. He has the most since week 11 at 15. The Chiefs play a lot of 2 high shell, and Shakir's yards per route run increases from 2.4 to 2.71 in that look in that coverage shell of too high. And then I went back and looked at all of the games which Josh Allen threw 30 or more passing attempts in those games. So against Indianapolis, Shakir had 9 targets. Against Kansas City, he had 12. Against the Rams, he had 8. Against Detroit, he had 7. Against Jacksonville, he had 6. And then against Tennessee, he had 7. Against Seattle, he had 10. And then against Minnesota, he had 5. So out of those 8 games that he's played in where Josh Allen has 30 or more passing attempts, he's only went under 2 out of those 8 times and went over 6 of 8. So I really like his receiving targets as well, where we don't have to count on him to, catch the ball. Even if he drops the ball, if it's targeted towards him, we get credit for that as well. So I think four targets a half is pretty doable for him. Two targets a quarter, not too bad, especially if they do happen to get into a trailing game script, or if they happen to get a 2-minute drive at the end of the first half where they get the ball back and it's like 2 minutes or less left. They do go in a 2-minute drill and they start, throwing. And if they have a successful drive where they work the ball down the field, I think he should be the main recipient of most of the targets in that drive. So that's why I like Shakir. Moving forward, last but not least, is Devontae Smith. So Devontae draws a really good matchup, and Noah Igbinowa, I think that's how you say his name, and also Sandstrills played a little bit of slot corner as well. Same thing with Washington as for the Chiefs, is they're weaker against the slot. They allow the 7th most passing yards per attempt at 9.6, as well as the 3rd highest adjusted net yards per passing attempt as well. And then since week 10, Devontae has run 54% of his routes out of the slot. And then also, me being an Eagles fan, just knows that he's a Washington Commanders killer, as he just dominates them. He has one crazy catch every time he plays them for some odd reason. He's only went under this line of 4 only twice, which was back in 2021 and 2022. But every other game out of those 8 games that he's played against Washington, he's went over or at least pushed his line. So I really like him in this spot. And then if any of you guys remember the last time that the Eagles played Washington, it was late in the game. I think it was 3rd and 3 or 3rd and short. And the Eagles ran a little slant route to Devontae, or a little dig route to Devontae, and he was wide open. And Kenny Pickett put the ball on the money, just a little slightly off a little bit, and Devontae dropped it, and that would have sealed the game and not given Washington a chance to get the ball back and score and win the game later on in the 4th quarter. But I think that a lot of that was kind of due to not having, his main quarterback that he's had all those reps with was Jalen Hurts, who was knocked out of that game early with a concussion. So I think him having Jalen back and they have that chemistry that they'll be able to connect on more passes like that. The only reservation, that's why it's my 4th and final pick, is only reservation I have towards Devontae or any of our passing targets is that we simply just don't throw the ball enough to be able to give them the volume. So that's my only worry with him, is that we don't throw the ball enough, or if Saquon is going crazy, they're going to rely on the run. But I do think he will be able to get, at least his 4 attempts, or 4 receptions, I should say, and push bare minimum. Another way you can look, if you don't like Devontae, you can go with AJ to get over 4.5. I like that line as well. So either or, I think both of them will have 4 catches in this game. A lot of times coaches, when things don't go well, especially with our coaching staff and the offensive passing offense, is that we try to overly correct stuff and try to, overcompensate and, give somebody more targets, than they usually have. So I think that there will be a little bit of overcorrection, but not a lot. So, but I think that Devontae should cover this line of over 4 receptions. So those are my 4, along with Jaden Daniels. So I'll go over them again. So we have Shakir over 7 receptions, or 7 receiving targets. We have Saquon Barkley over 21.5 fantasy, as well as Travis Kelce over 16 fantasy, and Devontae over 4 receptions, along with the free square, which is Jaden Daniels over 0.5 passing yards. I appreciate you guys. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.